Well, Broncos country, a mile high salute to all of you. Hope you're having a wonderful Tuesday, man. As I am, it's been a really productive day for me, actually. And we're going to break down the Broncos running back position, a hot topic, something we've talked about a lot, and something that is detrimental to the overall success of this team, for lack of better words. Before we get into it, guys, if it's your first time on the channel, I appreciate you tuning in. Welcome. Check some of the other videos out. If you love Denver sports, specifically the Broncos, the Avalanche, the Nuggets, I think you're going to love all the content that we have here on this channel. We're gearing up for Nuggets season to start. The Avs are finally starting to find their groove. So there's going to be a lot of stuff coming down the pipeline. I appreciate it in advance. And be sure to like the video if you are a subscriber. FTA, like y'all been saying in the comments, for the algorithm. It'll help me out tremendously. All right, guys, let's get into it. So, as we know, and as I've said from way before the season started, I'm very concerned with the Broncos running back room. I always have been. I felt like we just have a lot of guys that are either just average or they can do one thing specifically well, and that's it. We don't really have that well rounded three down back that I think Sean Payton was so used to and successful with in his time in New Orleans, obviously with Alvin Kamara, Pierre Thomas, those kinds of guys before him. And it's been very up and down. And what we've noticed is that the way that the running backs perform ultimately translates directly into how whether the Broncos, not just if the Broncos offense is good, but whether the Broncos end up ultimately winning or losing. Now, Sean Payton, Bo Nix's ability to really move the chains and get yards with his feet has been very helpful. It's obviously been an extension of that run game, which has been a really big positive. But in those games where we just got to grind you out, where you need a running back to really just make a difference, you don't see, I feel like this offense is really lacking a lot of those game changing plays when it comes to the performance of the running backs overall. And so that's really what I got to break down here. What can we do? What have we tried? So let's take it from the top down. Javonte Williams, we know what we've gotten him. He's had games where he's looked really good, specifically the Raiders game, and then obviously against the Saints. That's 2 games out of 7. The other 5 games, he's looked bad to terrible, not very good overall. He's looked slow. His average per carry has been terrible. And it's just been a little bit of a frustration. Now, I also understand why the Broncos are kind of, in a way, stuck with him. And here's a couple reasons why. Firstly, for what it's worth, Javonte Williams is actually very good. He's been very good in the pass game. He's not a very explosive pass catcher or just runner in general, but he's been very solid and reliable in the pass game. He's also tremendous at pass blocking. So keeping the Bo Nix clean in those obvious pass down situations, it's been huge for him. It's been really big having him. But as a full time back, he's just been a little bit underwhelming. He's finally cracked, over the 4 yards a carry average, for the regular season so far. He's at 4.1 yards a carry on 73 attempts. So it's getting better, but there's still a lot to be desired. A lot. And it's really gotten better in, 3 of the last 4 games, really. Um, so he's just kind of like, all right. He's kind of one of those backs that, man, when he looks good, you just get frustrated that he doesn't do that all the time. And when he looks bad, it looks really, really bad. Julian McLaughlin's been a little bit frustrating too. I do think that we should still get him involved a little bit more. To be honest with you, in the offense, um, he's only had 7 touches in the last, or I guess 7 carries in the last 2 games. That's not really enough at all. I get why they're doing that. He hasn't looked ultimately that good, but I'd like to see him get a little bit more because he does bring some juice to this offense. And there's ways that they can do it. After those two, it's been a combination, right? Tyler Bidet started to look good, and then he goes on injured reserve with that back injury. And then, they mix in Audric Estime. Well, Audric Estime's fumbled 2 times in 9 career carries. In my opinion, what that tells you is that you can't trust him. You cannot see him. He shouldn't play anymore for the rest of the season. I know that sounds kind of tough, but that's unacceptable. 2 fumbles and 9 carries is just not good. And obviously, he had that stint where he was on IR as well. I've been pounding the table to see Blake Watson because I think we're at a point now where it's like, why not? Why can't we just take a look at him? But it just doesn't seem like that's going to really be in the cards. He's on the practice squad now instead of the active roster. but I don't get it. I really don't understand why he um, isn't getting the run. So as it stands right now, guys, it's the Javante Williams and Julian McLaughlin show. Whether you like it or not, that's what it is. Is it a terrible room? No. But is it a good room? No. I would say we're about average, maybe slightly below average when it comes to those two guys. And they're both very different. And none of them are really very good at one thing. Javante kind of seems to be pretty good at, a few things, like I said, catching the ball and pass pro. And then Julian McLaughlin brings a little bit of that juice and that explosiveness, but he A isn't getting enough opportunities, and B, he's just not getting he doesn't he seems to be going down way too easily. Yes, he's a smaller back. I get it. But he kind of has balance issues where arm tackles genuinely do bring him down. Whereas there's a lot of guys, a lot of running backs in the NFL that are his size, that don't go down that easy, that have better balance. You think about Philip Lindsay as an example, right? Philip Lindsay was somebody that was very much undersized, but he was tough to bring down because he didn't go down on just uh, an arm tackle for lack of better terms. So is this running back room sustainable? I would say they could be, but the problem is we're one injury away from it being an absolute disaster in that room. And as we know, running back injuries are something that are very much almost a guarantee. If Javante goes down in a game, who are you gonna be able to trust full blown to be able to take over that role? And you don't really have an answer to that. If Jaleel goes down, you know, and Javante's having one of those bad Javante games, it's a wrap for the team, and we're gonna rely a lot more on Bo Nix. So that gets me thinking, what do we need to do to fix it? Well, I think the first thing that we need to do is at least see what Blake Watson can do. At least get an idea of what the kid can do under the bright lights. I think this game against Carolina that's coming up is a great opportunity for the coaching staff to get him some carries, to get him some touches. I think we all believe that it's going to be one of those games where the Broncos should be up pretty big, maybe even early on in the game, and they're going to need to milk some clock and just run the ball. And that's where you start to see other guys get a lot more carries. And I think it's a really good opportunity for Blake Watson. But I'm not getting my hopes up because they've shown no reason why they would play him. If they're stuck on Blake Watson not being ready, do we look in the trade market, right? I think that when you look at the trade market as a whole for this team, there's two positions where it actually makes a ton of sense, regardless of who it is, regardless of the stature of the player and really the cost, is tight end and it's at running back. Wide receiver, you can go back and forth on if one guy's a fit, if not. I think it's a very um, crowded room, and I think that there's a lot of guys in there that I'd like to see continued development from, so it might not make as much sense. But when it comes to the tight end room and the running back room, absolutely. Now, good quality running backs are not typically available for trade, especially ones that are young. The only one that comes to mind that could be a potential is Travis Etienne. And if that's the case, sign me up 100%. I'm back behind that move. I think he's a phenomenal fit, and it would be exactly the type of running back that I feel like this team needs. Now, what is the cost going to be? Is he even, is Jacksonville even going to be willing to trade him? Those are all questions that you need to answer. But outside of that, there's not really guys that, at least from what you read and what you see, make a lot of sense. The tight end room, there's going to be a lot more options there. So that would be something that I think is going to be um, more understandable and something that I can foresee happening. Now, the most likely scenario with this running back room is that we are just going to have to make do with what it is that we have and make the best out of it. And what that kind of looks like is we're going to have to hope that, you know, Javante Williams and Julian McLaughlin both stay healthy, or we're going to have to hope that, maybe Audric Estime shows something very special. He gets another opportunity and he shows something very special in those opportunities, or that Blake Watson comes in, like I think he would, and super flashes um, as a running back for this team. Because I'll tell you all something. From what I saw in the preseason, what I know about him as a player in college, this dude is the best fit on the roster of all the running backs that we have for what Sean Payton wants to do. Now, it's important to keep in mind that there's obviously a reason why he hasn't gotten an opportunity. He was active for one game and he didn't touch the ball. So there's obviously a reason for that. Are we ever going to know? Maybe, maybe not. But I would love to see it because I think that he would be somebody that can be very intriguing for this offense. I use that word a lot when it comes to the Broncos offense because there is some intrigue. There's also a lot of frustration. I want to know what you guys think. How do we fix this running back room? It's a very, very important room, especially when you have a young, inexperienced quarterback that you're trying to develop. The run game is their best friend. So, what do you guys think that we need to do, if anything? Or maybe you're happy with Javante Williams and Jaleel. Let me know in the comments below. I'm curious what you guys think. Until next time, guys, go Broncos as always. Spend time with those people that you love the most. Don't forget to do that. And lastly, peace out.